In this episode, we're going to begin to glue the first half of the dome together. However, first of all, I need to give a big shout out to Love Minis, P40 F40, Fleetwood J, Chris Campling. Apologies if I mispronounce this. Andy Clift and Svi Wheeler, Trevor Rodway, and Chris Davies. Thank you very much, guys. Hey guys, so in the last video I said I was going to reprint two pieces of the dome. This is to save me all the work of cutting bits away and gluing it. I just thought it would be a lot more stable and easier to do because we were going to build the next piece of the dome in halves. So I printed off dome piece number 3, and to be honest with you, it's amazing. It's actually a better print quality than the original piece, so I'm happy with that. So I then printed off dome piece number 1, and before I did that, my slicing software Cura decided to do an update. Now, I don't know if what happened next is because of Cura or because of my printer. Maybe I've done something wrong on my printer, but the print failed, and as you can see, it's failed so close to the top. It's less than a centimetre away. And also what I've done is I was having a look at my pies, and I really wasn't happy with the way I glued them. It's got big gaps in it. I don't know if you can see through it. So I decided to reprint the pies. Now the reason I've got gaps in here is I actually did glue the locating pegs in before I did the filming, and then I realised I wanted to demonstrate it. So I actually drilled them out again, and I think what's happened is I've not quite drilled the holes properly, so that's not a problem. So I decided I'll do a quick reprint and don't tell anybody. Unfortunately, the print failed, and as you can see now, I could fix these, but I think it's going to be quite difficult because these are going to have to sit in a certain position. So that's kind of scuppered my plans a little bit for this video. What I was planning on doing was gluing the domes together and gluing the pies. So what I'm going to do, there is a technique involved with the pies. So this episode I'm just going to glue the domes together and nothing else, which actually will serve us as an advantage because we'll continue printing bits off for the future. It just means we'll have more parts assembled. Right, so let's crack on with the dome. Okay, so we're going to glue some of the dome pieces together, and we're going to do these in 2 halves. So we're going to start with pieces 4, 5 and 6. Obviously you could start with 1, 2 and 3. The reason I'm starting with these is because 1, 2 and 3 have failed, so I'm just in the process of sorting those out, and what I'll do is I'll do those post-production, and we can then finish them off next week. So what are we going to need? We are going to need obviously the 3 dome pieces. We are then going to need 12 M4 screws, and these are 10mm long. 10mm means that it can just reach through with not too much poking out. You'll then need 12 nuts. If you decide you're going to use nylock, in the end I'm actually going to use ordinary nuts, but if you use nylock you'll actually need a longer screw, it won't work. And then you will need 24 washers. Now the process that I'm doing this, I'm also going to need, these are going to be helper screws. So what I need is 16mm M4 screws, 3 nuts and 6 washers. And here's how I'm going to do it. So we will first of all take 2 pieces. Now I will stress that the more of this you put together, the harder it's going to become. So we take our 16mm screws and we pop in 1 washer. The washer just to protect the piece of plastic as it goes in. So we thread that through, and then we'll pop another washer on the other end, and then we will just pop that on just so that it's on. You see there that the screw's just showing, but then we can open it up and we can access those sides. So then we take the second one, we'll do exactly the same. I personally like to work at the top, then the bottom, then the middle. And what this will do, this will attach the two pieces of dome together. We've then got the room to apply glue, and then we can replace the screws with smaller screws. So that one's on, and then we put our third helper screw in. Now the glue that we're going to use the Yoo-hoo glue. To be honest with you, we're sticking this in 3 different ways. We're going to glue it, we're going to bolt it, and we're going to seal it with a 3D pen. You don't need to use the 3D pen if you don't have one, but obviously the more ways you have of gluing these together, the better. So the next piece of equipment we need a piece of plastic or something to apply the glue. What I've actually done, when I print things off, I print on a brim. Any of the brims that have come off cleanly, I've just cut them up into strips and I've kept them, and these are actually quite handy for applying glue. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get 2 or 3 out just in case one breaks. We then need our Yoo-hoo, which we've already tested this, it works very well. And what we will need is one spanner I found very useful. This is a 7mm spanner, whatever fits onto there, and then another spanner, whatever, to fit on the other end. And I found what works best for me is a socket. So what we can then do is we can hold one end down and then we can tighten up with the other. Just make sure I've got that the right way. So that goes that way, so that way. It's actually the wrong way. So what we are going to do, because this is a slow drying glue, we're not under so much pressure to apply. What we want to do is we want to apply glue, we then want to screw this together and then clamp it. Then we will one by one replace these screws with the screws that we're going to go with in the end. Now I said we're using 12 screws, 12 nuts, 24 washers. That's actually per half. Then obviously we'll need the same again for the second half, and then we'll need more screws to bring them together. Bringing the 2 halves together is going to be a little bit harder. So what I would also advise is some kind of scrap or some kind of plastic. It's probably going to work best if we don't work straight out of the tube. So cardboard will do the job. So we're going to put enough glue onto the cardboard to do the job. There we go. It's quite a runny glue, quite easy to apply, and what we want is a nice thin layer all over, but don't come right up to the edge if you can help it. If you do come up to the edge, then it's going to spill out and then we're going to have to clean up. This will just save a clean up job. So you see there I've got some glue on the piece of plastic, and I'm just going to put that in there, and we're just going to apply a little bit of glue. Try not to go right up to the screw, because obviously you don't want to glue the screw in, these screws anyway. So there we go, I'm just applying a little bit of glue, and then I'll just turn it over, and then I'll apply on the other side just to make sure I've got this edge. There we go. There we go. So what we will do now is we will get some clamps, and I'm going to use this, you know, when we're saying about, there we go, tighten that up finger tight. So that's now, that's done up. and we've done it finger tight just so that we can do it quickly. So what we're then going to do, how many clamps do you need? As many as you can get on, really. I actually only own 6 clamps, so I'm going to use 3. And I'm going to put one in the middle, I'm going to put one near the bottom and one near the top, and there we go. Make sure that's as straight as you can get it on there. We make sure everything works fine. Test the screw holes first. If the screws don't go through properly, they should go through nicely like that. If they don't, you get yourself a 4mm drill and just drill them through. They should be 4mm. So now what we need to do is just move these for a little bit of convenience. So we're now going to remove one of the screws. There's still enough holding that there, and we're going to replace that with a 10mm screw. So wash it on the other side, and remember this washer is just to protect the plastic, and we'll do this up finger tight. And then we get our spanner, we use one to hold it with and one to do it up nice and tight. And the point that you want to stop, why is that not going? I think I've got that on undo. There we go. I can never figure out which way round these go. Right, and the point that we want to stop is it should be nice and tight. You'll feel it when it starts to go stiffer. If you get a little tiny crack, do you know this is a really cheap set? There we go, that's nice and tight. That's not coming out easily. So we'll clamp that back up, and you can see that that 10mm screw is just the right size. You could, if you really wanted, pop a little bit of super glue over there, but that's really not needed. So we'll undo this one, and we will replace the screw with a 10mm screw. So washer. Now I like my screws tight. I like my screws with a certain order. It doesn't matter which way round these screws go. However, I like them all facing the same way. It's just how I am. This particular one is a little bit awkward. It's like there isn't quite so much gap. Maybe it's got a little bit fatter near the top. And this one I've got a lot less space to work in. So we just go a little bit slow. Take your time on this. You don't want to slip. There we go. I've got a little tiny bit of a crack there, so we know that that's nice and tight. Okay, and then we'll reclamp that. And I mean, at this point it's actually quite nice and tight. You can see the glue starting to work. And then what we'll obviously do is at some point we will test this once it's dry. It should take about 24 hours to be fully dry. And we'll do those up. Oh, this is embarrassing, isn't it? Your lovely tool set isn't working properly. There you go. So I'm happy with that. And then what we will do is we'll repeat the other side with piece number 6. So piece number 6. So we use the temporary fixing screws, the nice long ones. I'm going to put them this way around for this piece. I find it's just the hardest getting the first one in. Once you've got that first one in, at least then the pieces are starting to hold together. Sorry, I just realised I'm whistling down the microphone. So when I took the last ones out, I kept that washer, and that just means that it's ready and waiting for me for this one. Oh dear. Now this one might be a little bit more difficult because I've not got, it's a little bit warped there. That won't be an issue. The anything that we don't resolve with the glue will be resolved with the screws. All the glue will do. I mean the screws should fasten it. Right, so we're going to just make sure that we've got, oh, here's a bit of a tip for you. When you're fixing these domes, make sure your piece of card with the glue is well away. You don't want your dome rolling in. So I'm moving these screws just to the end so that we've got this working space again. Right, so plenty of glue. Better to throw a little bit of glue away because you've not used it all than it is to be worrying about, oh, I haven't got enough on there. So there we go. We slap a bit in there and just roll it around. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be fully flat because as you squeeze the dome pieces together, that will flatten it. I'm just going to apply a little bit extra to this piece. I'm going to risk it all losing out the sides, but there's a little, it's not quite flat. Whew. Make sure you use this glue in a well ventilated area. Now we've got plenty of working time with this glue, but obviously you don't want to sort of take it too slow. You do want to crack on and get on with it. And what you'll notice with these screw holes, they aren't located in exactly the same place for every bit. This is to make sure that the dome pieces can't be put together incorrectly. If you don't have any pieces of plastic, you can equally just use a piece of card. There we go, right. Oops. So, what we will do now is we will tighten these screws up, just a finger tight. Like so. And we get 3 more clamps. So I'm using 3 clamps simply because I only have 6. So using 6 clamps will 3 at a time will make sure that I've got enough for each dome piece. So having put that on, we just move our pieces around and we'll remove this screw and we'll replace that with another 10mm and a washer. And again, I'm putting my screws in that way because I want them all lining up the same way. It's more of a cosmetic thing. Okay, my apologies for the cut. What actually happened is I just kicked my headphone wire and it came out. Thankfully I realised what I'd done as soon as I did it. So there's our first screw going in, and just like before, we're going to just tighten that up gently. We're in no rush to do this. And there we go, that one's on. And then the next one can go in. So 10mm M4 screw with a washer, that goes in. Washer on the other side, and then a nut. Excuse me. I think I might actually switch away from this socket set. I think that's fine actually. Right, so we'll just bring the clamps down a little bit. Okay, so 10mm screw with a washer on the other side. I find these top pieces are more difficult. It's as though either the screw, the hole, the amount of space that we have is a lot smaller, so these are a little bit more difficult to get started, but that's not a problem. And this is where the socket set really comes in useful, because you don't have an awful lot of space to work with a screwdriver type. You can't really get that in so well. So that's all I'm going to do for this week actually. So we now have half a dome, and then what we will do is next week I'll fix my dome, what we call post-production, and then what we'll do is we'll glue together the second half of the dome, and then we can put that together the third week. We can join that up, and then we can start doing the pies. And what we will do is we can start to drill out these little locating holes. If you look on the pies that we've already done, which I can't look on mine because they've gone. So we drilled some holes out in there so that we could join them together, but we've also got locating holes there, and these will line up. There is a specific way to do these. I've noticed that the holes don't line up exactly right if you do it a certain way, so we have to, once we do the locating pegs, that should enable us to line that up, and then once we've done that, we can see that's not going to line up. So then while this is drying, I personally would put this on a flat space. So then what we'll do now then is we'll get on with the rest of the printing. Okay, so what I've done now is I've loaded up the first three pieces of the lower ring, and what I'm going to do is we're going to use our little trick to lay them flat like so. Whoops, wrong one. And then what I would do, just to help them on the print, we'll then rotate them so that they're all facing the same way. So this one can come up like so. Again, if you've got a smaller printer, obviously you'll need to print these off more at a time. Sorry, less at a time. I've got the 300mm by 300mm print base. What I like to do is just arrange them so that when it does a brim, it will attach those three pieces. That way what you're doing is the brim adds support to the base, but then what will happen is all three pieces will all add support to itself. And this is almost sliced, and this will take approximately 7 hours to print. Okay, so here are our pieces that we've just printed off. We see here that number 1, and it's a really good print actually, good quality. This is piece number 2. Needs a little bit of clean up around here. That's number 2, and this is number 3. There will be 7 of these in total, so we'll print 2 next week and 2 the week after, and they just simply slot together with a dovetail joint. Quite a stiff connection, and these will need a little bit of cleaning up. I think I've had a slight warp there, as you can see. That's not a problem, we'll clean that up. And then piece number 3 can go in. Now these will not fit in incorrectly. These dovetail joints have been made so that you can't put them in the wrong way. Actually, saying that, this has gone in fine, so I stand corrected. So double check. I think these are all the same. One thing you will notice, you've got sunken screw holes there, and then you've got a screw hole there. At this point, I believe this piece is actually to attach. So I tell a lie, they're actually going that way. I think, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. Yeah, they will be going that way. There's actually a cutout notch along the edge. What will happen is you'll have your dome here, which has got a little cutout. Then you'll have your blue ring, which goes there. That'll have a notch, and then so you'll have it's like you'll have the dome and you have the blue piece there. So it's a separator. So number 1, number 2. See if I've got that around the right way. I will. Oh, that's number 3. I will double check the instructions. These do come with very good instructions from MR Badley. I've got to be careful. I'm just ripping the print apart. So once you put these in, don't play with them too much. But again, this is the problems I'm having with the silver filament. If you can print these off with a plain filament, I would recommend it. So we've got the warp there, and this is actually a good way to make sure they're lined up. Line them up by the top. So that's these pieces. You can see we've got almost half a ring there. The next ring will bring it up to beyond halfway. Okay, so that's it for the main building for this week. What we will do though before we go is we will finish off doing the body base ring, and then that will complete that ring. Okay, so these are the base ring pieces 5 and 6. Now I have placed them both on the same print bed just to show you what they're like. You can see it's just over an 8-hour print for the both of them. It is a large piece. You see it almost takes up the entire print bed. So I actually printed these off separately. Okay, so this is base ring number 5. You can see it's got the number 5 on it, and again, really nice, good good quality print. I'm really happy with the way that's come out. And this is piece number 6, and I will get the rest of the base piece, but you actually won't be able to see it. I cannot fit it on the camera, but this piece is going to go into number 4 like so, and then number 6 goes into number 5 obviously. That one's having a bit of trouble, and then number 6 goes back into number 1 like so. And as I say, I can't, if I move my camera up, you can see I really am struggling now. So what I'll do is I'll place this on the shelf, I'll take a photo, and then I'll import the photo. Okay, so this is the base ring in all of its glory, and I am really happy with this. It's about, let's say, it's about 18 inches across. Someone tells me that the finished model, finished product will be about 3 foot in height, so it's not going to be a small model. So what I've got for you next is all the pieces that we've put together so far. So I'll just change. Okay, so what we have here is, on the left hand side is the dome that we completed in this episode. On the right hand side is the 3 pieces of dome that we'll work on next week. Now these have just been very loosely screwed together, and then on the left side you can see the 3 pieces of ring that we've printed off today. Okay then, so we'll do our costings next. So last week we had a £2.18 deficit. I didn't worry about that because I knew we had £10 to come this week. The lower ring 1 to 3 has cost us £4.43. Next week will be cheap because we're only going to do 2 pieces. And then it cost us £3.38 for the base rings 5 and 6, and then 71 pence for the screws. Not an awful lot, but they still need to be costed into the project because they are going to cost money. That gives our total spending for the week of £7.52, which leaves us the massive sum of 30 pence, which we will carry over to next week. So unfortunately that's it for this week. I'm trying to reduce the size of the videos, but to be honest with you, because I'm showing you new things, I want to go into detail. What my plan is like each stage I will show in detail, but once we've done it for a second time, what I will do is say, do this in the usual manner, and then I will do it, and then I will speed up the footage. So just check them. I've made up a little cheat sheet because I'm kind of losing track of where I am. Next week what we're going to do, we're changing the plan of where we're going because my prints haven't come out in time. I've decided to go along with that because although I could wait a little bit longer and make the video later, because obviously I'm making the video before I upload it, I think it's good to include it because things don't always go smoothly. The majority of the pieces have gone very well, but I've had a couple of hiccups, and I want to use those hiccups. If you say, alright, the print time will be this number of hours, and therefore the whole project will take this long, and then you get a couple of failed prints, your mother-in-law comes round for dinner, one of the kids falls ill, you know, it's all going to slow the project down, because obviously if you've got to deal with something more important, you know. For me, the thing that slows me down the most is the fact that I have to go to work every day, and that's how I earn my money to do this build. So next week what we'll be doing, we'll do more pieces of the lower ring. We won't do anything with them. So what we're actually now doing, now we've got something to work on, we can carry on printing so that we've got something to work with later on, and things will all catch up. And then we will start on the, I'm wondering whether to start on the skirt next, which will go underneath the base ring, but I'll probably actually start work on the first of the ring. The base is made up essentially of 4 layers. You've got the base ring, you've got the next ring, which are quite small pieces about that big, and then above that you've got the much bigger pieces, big panels, and then you've got the top, which I haven't really looked at the top properly yet. Then we'll probably work on the skirt, and then we'll do the top ring, and then we'll perhaps somewhere in between there we'll start to discuss about the Lazy Susan, which is what we're going to need to make the dome turn 360 degrees. And also at some point we'll start looking at the Arduino, so we can start to get some basic electronics going. Okay guys, so that's it then, and I'll see you next week. Okay, so the first comment left was from Love Mini. Sorry, Love Minis. Great way to save, having a way to save a spoiled print. Very clever. I do deeply respect I do deeply love the respect you show the designer. In the past, I had to take 4 design and build classes. People asked for the plans, then forgot that I existed. I felt bad about it and stopped sharing my work with anyone. I totally agree with that. A lot of us in this hobby building groups, we do share a lot of work with each other, and we're very, very happy to do so. However, if people can't even say thank you, it really does actually hurt. Now, I love these plans. The more that I build, the more that I feel that the guy who designed these, Mr. Badley, that he's an absolute genius. There is no other words to describe it, and he fully deserves that respect. P40 F40 says, coming along nicely. I agree that you are better off with a heavier wall thickness. Better too much than too little. Gel type super glue makes an excellent filler for any big gaps that you need to fill. I have to confess, I never really thought about it as a filler. I'm aware of super glue as a filler, but it's not something I normally think about. It's slightly more difficult to control, and obviously if I use things like the 3D pen, I can always file down too much, but I'll try and use super glue more often. Fleetwood J says, wow, very impressive, and it's going to be a huge one. Done. Looking forward to the rest and the complete R2D2. I'm going to make a confession. I don't know if I've said this before. If I'd have realised exactly how big it was going to be, I may actually have had second thoughts on building this. It is going to be massive. However, I feel I'm too far into it now to stop, so I've got no option but to keep going. Chris Campling says, great video, thanks for the thanks, LOL. Thank you for the thanks, something like that. Andy Clift says, great progress, looking forward to seeing the project come together. Svi Wheeler says, that dome look is really coming together nicely. I'm just finishing the D'Agostini build and I'm seriously tempted to start full-size R2. Got to admit, the electronics scare me a bit though, with the complexity and cost. Now obviously I'm actually, as I'm filming episode 3, I've already built a few weeks ahead. It's a tactic that I've got that should I actually stumble or slow down, something happens, then I can actually work on it. It will slow me down, but I can still release a video weekly. So I am actually working on some electronics. It is complicated if like me you know absolutely nothing about electronics. However, I think that there's also an advantage in not knowing anything, because you tend to do more research, and by that I mean if you know loads about electronics, the temptation is just to dive in and go bum 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 bum, and you've got, obviously things can go wrong. Because I know nothing, I'm asking stupid questions on the Astromech forums. I'm also on the Droid Builders forums, which I will provide a link for down below. I'm on various forums, I'm on Facebook groups, I'm asking loads of questions, which is only something that a beginner would do. And to be honest with you, which kind of goes back to the first comment from Love Minis, people are jumping in and they're very happy to help, which is obviously why I feel obliged to say thank you to people. So don't worry about the electronics. In fact, I anticipate that there are, obviously I'm recording this to go out on a certain date, but I anticipate that there will be people watching this perhaps when I'm releasing episode 50. So you will obviously have the advantage that you can watch a couple of weeks ahead, before working on an earlier part. And obviously this is a build diary and not an instructional video. So if there's anything that I do, it may work well for me, but you might look at that and go, yeah, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. Now the next comment actually made me cry. It was so wonderful, and I couldn't thank him enough. Trevor Rodway says, I am not interested in Star Wars and its figures, but I'm really enjoying your work ethics and the fact that you have the bottle to build a model from scratch. We'll be watching until the end. Another of your part builds is the Routemaster bus, which again I am not building myself, but follow every step of your build with great interest. You have got to be one of the best part builders on YouTube, Penny. Thanks for sharing it all. I'm speechless. Thank you so much for that. Now I put YouTube videos out for primarily for my own benefit. It's nice to perhaps in a year's time. In fact, I've actually been running this channel now for a year, and I'm starting to look back at some of my earlier videos, and some of them are cringeworthy, but some of them are actually quite good fun to watch once you've forgotten about them. So the fact that other people can appreciate my videos, in fact, at the time of recording, I can't remember how many subscribers. I've got over 300 subscribers, which suggests to me that there are over 300 people who enjoy what I enjoy. So thank you very much. That means so much to me. And then lastly, but certainly not least, a very good friend of mine, Chris Davies. Great video, Penny. Always a pleasure to watch. So that will wrap up this week, and hopefully I'll see you next week.